Right. You're ready to go.
Jesse. Hello, everyone. Good evening. This is the Arts, Culture, Education, and Schools Committee meeting for Manhattan Community Board 4, April 8th. And my name is Jesse Ishmael, and this is my co-chair, Maureen. I just want to go over a little housekeeping. MCB4 has adopted a hybrid meeting policy whereby we will meet in person with a remote option. All community board meetings will require an in-person forum to come to order and conduct business. Committee members are expected to attend meetings in person unless they have a disability or extraordinary circumstance as defined by the New York State Open Meetings Law. CES committee members attending remotely can fully participate in the meeting and must leave their cameras on. Due to public health best practices and space limitations, we encourage members of the public to join virtually. Members of the public that are attending remotely can fully participate in the meeting. The MCB4 hybrid policy can be found on our website. Tonight's meeting is being recorded and is currently live streaming on YouTube. So we have a full agenda tonight. And the first item on the agenda, well, first we have an open session. We always have an open session before every meeting. So if anybody from the public has something that they'd like to speak on for 2 minutes, they can raise their hand now or... Okay, doesn't look like we have anyone who wants to speak on it. Okay, so tonight we're starting with Poster House. We have Salvador Munoz, who is here to discuss a block party. I believe it's happening in July. And if anyone has not been to Poster House, I would recommend. I was just there recently, and they have such a great exhibit on New York currently and on film posters. So it's so exciting, and I'm really happy to have Salvador here. So Salvador, do you want to introduce yourself and let us know all about the block party?
Yeah, hi everyone. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Salvador Munoz, and I'm the Director of Public Programs at Poster House. I'm going to share my screen. I prepared a small presentation for you all, but I'm really excited to join you and chat a little bit about the programming that we have going on. 1 second, let me just go ahead and pull up my notes. Can everyone still see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, great. So Poster House is the first and only museum in the United States dedicated to the art and history of the poster. We're located on 23rd Street between 6th and 7th. If you haven't been to us yet, I'd love to welcome you and invite you to come explore. We have 4 exhibition spaces, 2 main exhibition spaces, and 2 smaller capsule exhibition spaces. And we are planning to host our 3rd annual block party this year. These are some images from our previous block parties in previous years. The first one took place in 2022 in the Flatiron Plaza. And one took place in 2020, and it was a part of West Side Fest. Is anyone familiar with West Side Fest? Wonderful, glad to hear that. So this year, we are planning to host the block party again on 24th Street between 6th and 7th. So right behind our museum, literally in our backyard. And this one is extra special for us because we're planning to commemorate our 5th anniversary, which we are all incredibly excited about. And this year, it will also coincide with West Side Fest again. So we're really looking forward to bringing this back to our community. During the block party, we will have free admission to the museum throughout the entire day, as well as timed exhibition tours. It will include, the block party itself will include live music, poster and art making activities, activities for children and families, games, other forms of engagement that are facilitated by our local arts and culture organizations, giveaways. This is a picture of our wheat paste wall, which is always incredibly popular. Giveaways, free exhibition tours, and much more. And the goal of this program is really to expand our reach beyond the museum's four walls and to meet our community where we're at and share a bit about what we can offer and celebrate the art and history of the poster. Yeah, so can I answer any questions that you all may have?
I see that you have the date there, July 13th. Sorry, could you repeat the hours again?
Yeah, we're looking at 12 to 5.
Where do you get your funding? And do you have like other businesses or whatever sort of helping with the poster fest? Or I'm just wondering sort of how it all comes together. And if there's anything you need from us, or if you have any requests to us.
Yeah, it's a great question. So our funding comes from a mix of sources, like many nonprofit organizations, a mix of private foundation support as well as public support from NYCPS and DCLA. For the block party, we do have a budget for it. We are also seeking additional sponsorship support to sort of bring it all together. And then apologies, and asks from you all. Really like your support for the larger committee would be very useful. Would love to welcome and invite you all to join us at the block party and to get the word out in our community, because this really is a community-centered offering. And so we want to make sure that our local neighbors know about the program and are invited to participate in it.
Sounds good. Did anybody else have a question? One question. Okay, Salvador, I saw that there was a children's section in the museum. Like, could you talk a little about what maybe you do with schools or kids?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So we have a very robust education department that handles our tours for K through 12 students as well as college age students. We do a ton of tours for different schools throughout New York City area, as well as some visitors. And we do have a regularly recurring family program called Poster Kids. This takes place once a month at our museum, and it's for our youngest visitors to engage them in the art and history of the poster. It is very popular and it happens monthly. We also have a teen program, and that happens 3 times a semester in the fall and the spring as well, trying to engage teens and young adults in Poster House. And at the block party, we will specifically have an area designated for children with different kinds of activities, including children's entertainers, bubble blowing, face painting, chalk drawing, all of those good family-friendly children's activities.
Sounds exciting. Yeah.
I would just say, thanks, Salvador. If you have, when you have like a flyer to help promote it's a Black Festival, whatever, the event in July, when you have that flyer, we would love to share it. So just be in touch with those event details and get it over that.
Yeah, absolutely. We will definitely be sharing that when we start our public outreach.
Great, thank you.
I make a motion to support this. Let me introduce. So just so there's no confusion, they're actually, as Salvador knows, their previous events happened not on city streets. So this year's event is happening on a city street. Historically, this committee once reviewed those street fairs, but that a few years ago, we shifted all of that to TPC. And so that they're coming actually officially to TPC to present for for their SAPO permit to approve. So I think it would be, I just want to, I think it would be, well, yeah, I think we defer to TPC, yeah, and let them make the decision on, I don't think there's any question whether, clearly this committee has supported Poster House in many different ways, so the board support is there, but yeah, so, but I'm just saying in terms of.
After the presentation to TBC, maybe then there could be a joint letter from both TBC and ACES. Thanking them and saying, look forward to the role of TBC sides, but we can support that.
Yeah, I don't see why not. Yeah, I think the letters about the block association stuff is, the block events are pretty cut and dry. If folks remember, so, but yeah, I don't think there's any issue about supporting Poster House as an organization from a arts and culture standpoint. I just think in terms of the street fair itself, let's let TPC handle that, and then we can go. Yeah, no, I don't think I couldn't even name one that I think we said no to, so.
Yeah, but if you wanted to vocalize your support to your colleagues on TPC, that'd be greatly appreciated.
We do have someone from the public raising their hand, though.
Right, go ahead. Mike?
We're bringing you over now, Mike. Still on the cameras, so it's not tracking when people are speaking.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, just FYI, the CB4 audio is very garbled tonight, just so you know that, from my end anyway. Salvador, I'm a musician and band leader. I'm wondering if the music groups that you have performing at the block party are being paid.
Yes, absolutely. Great question, Mike, and thank you so much for bringing that up. I also am a practicing artist, so it's very important to me that we pay the artists that we work with and we pay them competitively. And that's a policy for Poster House, regardless of the size of the program that we're working on.
Great, very glad to hear that. Have you made your selections for programming for this year's block party?
We are in the process currently, and if you'd like to discuss options, I'd love to be in touch.
Okay, should I just contact you at the email address that you have listed, salvador@posterhouse.org?
Yes, you can contact me directly there. Absolutely.
Okay, that's my questions. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Mike.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Salvador, for your time and this great party. Looking forward to it.
Thanks.
Yeah, I look forward to seeing you all there. And if you'd ever like to visit Poster House, please do feel free to reach out. I would love to show you all around. And thank you so much for making time to hear from me today.
Great. Thank you. Take care. Okay, so next on the agenda, we have class size matters, and I'm so happy to have Leonie here. She's going to have a lot to say, but New York State did pass a law last year that we will be reducing class sizes in the city as well as across the state. And she will be speaking on that along as well as her advocacy, which I think has been like going on for a decade now, right? She's been out there for a while. And, so congratulations, first of all, on the passing of this law, and we're excited to hear a lot more about it. Whenever you're ready.
Right. Well, it's been more than a decade. I hate to admit it. It's been over 20 years now. So I'm going to share my screen. Thank you for letting me present to your committee today. I had just found it and now I've lost it again. Here it is. So yeah, I'm here to present first of all, why is class size so important? Probably you were all aware of this, but I thought I would just quickly go over some of the research which shows that smaller classes lead to better student outcomes in every way that can be measured. And the gains and benefits are especially large for disadvantaged and minority students who see twice the benefits than average students. And in the Campaign for Fiscal Equity case, New York's highest court actually said that city students were denied their right to a sound basic education under the state constitution as a result of overly large classes. And in a survey, 86% of New York City principals a few years ago said they were unable to provide a quality education because the class sizes were too large. And the DOE gives parent surveys every year to parents of public school kids. For District 2, School District 2, which is, overlaps with your community board area, smaller classes was the top priority for District 2 parents among 12 choices when asked what changes they'd most likely to see in their children's schools. So a law was passed overwhelmingly in June 2022 by the legislature and passed into law by the governor in September 2022. And it requires smaller classes to be phased in all grades over 5 years to no more than 20 students per class in grades K through 3, 23 students, grades 4 through 8, 25 students per class in high school classes by the end of the 2027-28 school year. All classes except for phys ed and performing art group classes such as band and orchestra are supposed to be capped at 40 instead of 50, which is what the contractual limit is now. Every year, about 20% of classes are supposed to reach these caps with an additional 20% each year. City's supposed to prioritize schools with the highest levels of poverty first. And mostly because of enrollment decline, we made the first year caps for this school year, but it's uncertain as whether we will make the 40% next year, and highly unlikely for the next 3 to 5 years, unless the DOE makes changes in policies and planning, which they have so far yet to do. So the Chancellor did appoint a class size working group last April. I was appointed to the working group. We released a report in December, and I hope that you might take a look at the report. It's pretty detailed. There are over 50 pages. I'm just going to present some of the highlights of the report to you tonight. We believe that it contains a lot of actionable, effective, and even affordable proposals, some of them cost-free, to lower class size. Here are just a few of them. Stop co-locating new schools and creating new schools if you don't have a building to put them in. Why every time you co-locate a new school, it takes away classroom space with the need to replicate administrative and specialty spaces. Adjust enrollment at nearby schools of the same grade level if some are very overcrowded and some are very underutilized. Accelerate and build more schools in overcrowded communities where all the schools are overcrowded. Strengthen the teacher pipeline, provide incentives to teach, especially in the highest needs district. And there are a lot of detailed proposals along these lines in the class size working group. And consider adding a separate budget line for class size reduction, separate from the fair student funding, which is where most schools get the majority of their funding right now. Why? Number one, principals are used to using that fair student funding in a flexible way, in ways that they decide are most important. And also we have the example of pre-K and 3K, whose class sizes are limited by state law already. They have a separate budget line to ensure that there's staffing available to keep them at that limit. And so we think that's a very good model for class size. Here is what's happened to class sizes over the last 2 years. You can see this comes directly out of a report, February report by the DOE. Class sizes have gone up on average in all elementary and middle schools for the last 2 years, and for high schools in the last year. And so you can see that we have been moving in the wrong direction because of budget cuts and other issues. This is the percentage of schools that comply with the caps over the last 2 years. And you can see the percentage of schools that have been comply have gone down, especially compared to 2 years ago. And over to the right is what all K-12 classes look like. You can see we're a bit under the 40% now, and we moved in the wrong direction. So that's why we think it's unlikely we'll make the 40% next year. But it really depends on enrollment more than anything else. So here are the district class sizes across the city. You can see District 2, which is the area that your community board overlaps with. You can see class sizes have gone up in K through 3, and they're well above, the averages are well above the cap of 20. That red line represents the cap. And this is for through 8th grade, also gone up slightly in the last year, way above the cap of 23. Now that's the average is 26.6. These are high schools, gone from below the cap to above the cap at 25.5. So many of the district schools in District 2 and citywide are overcrowded. That's according to the Blue Book, which is the annual report on utilization. This data is for last year because we don't have this year's Blue Book data yet. And it's not 100% reliable, but it's the best data that we have. School District 2, 27% of our schools listed as overcrowded. And that includes almost half, or 48.6% of elementary schools. 39% of students citywide were enrolled in overutilized schools last year. This 405 overutilized schools roughly aligns with the DOE assessment that approximately 500 schools currently do not have the space to comply with the law. And in his testimony to the legislature, Banks, the chancellor, has said, while some schools need just a few classrooms, some need many. Building new space will take years to complete and billions in new capital dollars. So one of the problems we have, however, is despite the need to build more schools, the DOE has been significantly cutting the budget for new capacity over the last 4 or 5 years. And in the new proposed 5-year plan, which is supposed to be adopted at the end of June, the funding for new seats was cut by over $2 billion and the number of new seats in half. And 77% of the seats are unidentified as to borough, district, or grade level. So these are the existing current capital plans from year to year. They are amended every year. You can see the downward slope of how much money is being spent on new capacity, and then it falls all the way to 4.1 billion for the new 5-year plan. Again, that is not yet adopted. This is the number of seats to be created in each of the capital plans over the last 5 years. Again, a sharp drop for the proposed capital plan of about 22,000 seats. And then, as I said, 77% of the seats are totally unidentified as to borough, district, grade level. The SCA, the School Construction Authority, says they will never divulge this in advance of acquiring the sites and the sites being in process of design. This is unprecedented for any capital plan I've looked at for the last 20 years. And even people who've been involved in this issue say it's unprecedented even before that point. And we believe that it violates 2 state laws as well as a local law passed by the City Council in 2018, which says that the capital plan is supposed to divulge exactly where the need is for new seats and where the seats are going to be built. So the DOE and the SCA are also continually changing their estimates of how much it would cost to build enough schools to lower class size. Originally, they claimed 30 to 35 billion, which is a number that we did not believe for a lot of reasons. Sometimes they continue to use this number, but more recently at the City Council budget hearings last month, they said they thought it would cost 22 to 25 billion for 85,000 more seats. We looked at the cost per seat in the new proposed 5-year plan, and we multiplied that by 85,000, and that equaled 15 billion, which again was, almost 10 billion less than their new assessment. And also, presumably, it does not include any of the other proposals that we made for adjusting enrollment between schools, some of them undercrowded and some of them overcrowded. Or another one of our proposals was to move some of the 3K and pre-K programs and seats into now empty seats in nearby CBOs and early childhood centers run by DOE. As of the fall of 2023, there were nearly 34,000 empty pre-K and 3K seats in these places, which we believe would free up as many as 1,400 elementary school classrooms. But they have not agreed to do any of these things. Assuming the SCA estimate of 85,000 seats is correct, only 30% of them will be complete completed by the deadline of the 2027-2028 school year. So that's a problem. So this is just a summary of local law 167 and how it violates that law. I'll give you the PowerPoint and you can look at it at your leisure, but this was a law that we pushed very hard to get passed, but also came out of this internal city council task force to try to make it more transparent what their needs assessments were. And instead of making their needs assessments for seats more transparent, they took that column out of the capital plan entirely. So there's also a need for more teachers, obviously. The two things that are needed is more space and more teachers. Estimates range widely. The DOE says we need about 10 to 12,000 teachers. The IBO says 17,000 teachers. Part of that difference turns out to be because there are over 8,000 teaching positions that are currently funded in the DOE budget, but that schools have not been allowed to fill. And one of the problems is the DOE has already shrunk the teaching force, K-12 teaching force, by 4,000 since 2019, and projects to cut nearly 3,000 more full-time teachers over the next 2 years. And of course, it's going to be impossible to lower class size. Once you're losing that many teachers. You need to hire teachers, not lose them. This is the head count for full-time K-12 teachers since 2019. This comes directly out of the January financial plan put out by OMB, and you can see a further loss of nearly 3,000 teachers that they are projecting over the next 2 years to save money. And then, there's the issue of funding. The DOE claims they don't have enough money to lower class size. However, we have gotten $1.3 billion in additional funding from the state in foundation aid to resolve the CFP lawsuit. As I mentioned, class size was the central issue in the case. And the Independent Budget Office also projects a city surplus next year of about $3.6 billion. So how can your community board help us pass a resolution? I think I've sent it to you with some district-specific class size and school overcrowding data, but several other community boards in Manhattan have passed a resolution asking DOE to comply with the law and implement some of the proposals in the class size working group. At this point, as I said, we're moving backwards, not forwards. There are going to be upcoming hearings on the DOE's class size plan that are required by law. They're supposed to start the public process within a month of the state budget, which being resolved, which unfortunately is still not resolved, but we figure it probably will be in the next week or so. And then the public hearings are going to start mid-May through mid-June. Sign up for our newsletter to be kept up to date on how you can contribute to the public debate over class size. And here is my email if you have any questions. I'd be happy to answer any questions now, of course, if you have them. Thank you.
Thank you, Leonie, for that presentation. I do have one question. I'm not sure how much they may deal with CB4 specific school specifically, but there is sort of the argument that Black schools that are high property schools already have smaller class sizes. I know you're nodding already because you've heard this before. So I get the feeling is what do they get out of it, right? Because it seems like the higher performing schools have a lot more students than some of the lower. So what
Yeah,
are these?
well, so there is that analysis which DO's put forward. Basically, the way they analyze it is by the percentage of high need students in a school. And it turns out that the highest needs, according to that analysis, are mostly very, very small schools with very low enrollments. So we looked at this issue through the lens of the state weighted needs formula, which is supposed to help distribute foundation funds among the schools. And that weighted need formula looks at the number of high need students as well as the percentage of high need students. And if you look at it through that lens, actually, the school with the highest weighted needs tend to have the highest classes. And I can show you those slides if you're interested in looking at them. Very few schools, if any, actually have made all the caps, and we're moving in the wrong direction. So here, let me share my screen once more so you can see this. Okay. So here we looked at class sizes according to their weighted needs. Again, the number of, this is a formula the state education department has that looks at the percentages and numbers of students in each school of English language learners, the students with disabilities, students in poverty, and students at the lowest achievement level. And then you take the percentage values multiplied by the school's enrollment. And then we separated them into quartiles. And you can see that quartile 1, which is the highest need, weighted need, 27% of this classes made the caps, compared to the lowest weighted need, which is quartile 4, in which 58% of schools made those caps. We also looked at the schools that made all of the caps this year. None of them in the highest need quartile made all the caps, and that's missing entirely, so that's not even on here. And 36% of the school in the lowest need, weighted need, were fully compliant. So you get a completely different picture of it when you look at both the number of high need students as well as the percentage of high need students.
Thank you for that. Matt?
I have some questions. I'll turn it over to the committee members to see if you all have any questions.
So that was a lot of information, Naomi. And so I think my little brain is still trying to process it all. I mean, it's extraordinary, the work that you've done. And I served on the chancellor's, whatever, but parent board or something years ago. And I remember you making presentations then. So I know you've been at this a long time, and it's great. I guess I'm still trying to get a sense, and maybe it's sort of buried in here, but it sounds like what you're asking us for is to say to the DOE, hey, come up with a plan, or not come up with a plan. Your committee's already come up with a plan. Support the plan that has been developed to achieve these goals. But I guess what I'm unclear about is, where has all the extra money gone that theoretically the DOE got in the last couple of years? Does anybody know?
It hasn't gone to school budgets. We know that for sure. There are other programs which the city has to pay for. School budgets have been essentially cut for the last 2 years, which is why class sizes have gone up. Every year there's an increasing amount of money that flows directly out of the DOE budget to charter schools and private schools that enroll kids with special needs. And those two portions of the DOE budget are increasing at a very, very fast rate. So we now spend more than $3 billion a year on charter school tuition. And I think it's something like, and more on that than we spend on kids with special needs in the public schools. And I think maybe $2 billion a year and growing on Carter cases and special project schools, I think they're called, special contract schools. These are both schools that DOE is paying for kids with disabilities to attend. Either the parents have gone through a lawsuit or they've gotten that agreement from the DOE without a lawsuit. And there are other things, costs that go up every year. Transportation goes up every year. I think energy costs. I mean, there are a whole lot of things that go up every year, but it's not money, certainly not money that's flowing into school budgets specifically for staff.
Now it seems like you frozen.
And that's one of the problems for this. And actually, there's a lawsuit. I don't know that it's going to actually win, but the UFT has filed a lawsuit because they say that the budget is the overall DOE budget has gone down also in the last couple of years. And so the UFT has sued because they found something in state law which says unless there is an economic contraction of city revenue, the amount spent on schools cannot go down. It's supposed to remain stable or go up. So I don't know whether that lawsuit is going to win or not. But basically, Eric Adams came into office and he decided to cut the budgets for all city agencies, not just DOE. City services have suffered overall. But I think we've felt it pretty severely at the school level.
Yeah, thank you for that. That is helpful. And I guess just my last question. So is there an estimate? Do you have an estimate of how much it would cost to implement the steps in the report of the committee?
Actually, we don't have an estimate, but the IBO has estimated that it would cost about $1.1 billion to be phased in over the 5 years. They don't think it's going to cost anything extra next year, but they think an extra $200 billion the following year, and an extra $420 billion, and then another $420 billion, something like that. I have a slide somewhere on that as well, if you'd like to see it. I can find that slide.
Send it to us. That would be great. Yeah, thank you. That's helpful.
Yeah, I think it's going to cost more money than they are assuming for next year. But then they are also assuming that these, empty teaching positions that have not been filled are somehow filled. So it's rather confusing. The DOE assumes the cost is even greater. And then in terms of the capital costs, that's a whole other issue, which really depends on how they implement it.
Got it. All right, thanks.
Any other questions from the committee? I have a question. I was curious of your thoughts, because I know sort of mayoral control of the city schools is sort of up in the balance, and with the state budget looming, I'm wondering if just your perspective, does implementing these proposals, make it easier or harder without mayoral control of our schools? No difference? Just curious what you think about that.
So I actually did a whole presentation for the New York City Bar Association on mayoral control, and I've heard that argument from the mayor that you need mayoral control to lower class size. We've had 20 years of mayoral control in which candidates have promised to reduce class size. Mayor Bloomberg promised to reduce class sizes in grades K through 3 in all schools to 20 or less. And then when he got elected, class sizes sharply increased in all grade levels, especially in K through 3, to the largest levels in a decade. And by the end of his mayoralty, he said it would be a good deal for students if you doubled the class sizes. De Blasio campaigned on the issue of reducing class sizes in all grades and yet never followed through. In a way, Eric Adams is the first mayor we've had in 20 years that never promised to lower class size. In fact, he said he wanted to increase class sizes, particularly in online schools, which he thought would be a great reform. And then he got criticized for that, so he doesn't talk about that so much anymore. But mayoral control has not been a friend to class size reduction. In fact, we've had 3 audits under specifically Mayor Bloomberg in which they found that state money meant for smaller classes was misused. So personally, I think mayoral control is a terrible system. Happy to give you more information on that if you want a briefing. There's no chance it's going to be settled in this budget because the legislature said no, even though Hochul and, of course, Adams wanted it in the budget. There's supposed to be a report released this week that was commissioned by the state education department and written by a bunch of professors at the CUNY Law School. And a letter was leaked by the mayor last week saying he won't trust that report no matter what it says because of a student protest that at the graduation of CUNY Law last year, where they turned their backs to him because of proposed budget cuts to CUNY. But he seemed to want to forestall this report, which I don't think is going to come up with great recommendations as to mayoral control. There were hearings in all 5 boroughs this winter. I'd say 95% of the people testified against the current system.
Thank you for that perspective. Really appreciate it. And then has the DOE released the list of sort of highest priority schools? I know that they're looking at the schools with the highest poverty levels. Has that list or schools, have those schools been identified? No, okay.
Absolutely not. In fact, they have not identified a single school where they say they intend to lower class size in next year, which they're supposed to do. They were supposed to do it this year too, and they didn't do it.
Okay. And then just for the committee's awareness, I just want to remind everyone that back in February, we did write a letter on the budget in which we did have a section brief, although we did sort of touch upon this, where we just said, furthermore, we are alarmed by the possibility that with such significant budget cuts, schools may struggle to comply with the newly enacted state law, limiting the number of students per class. Adequate state funding is imperative to ensure the successful implementation of this law. So I just wanted to remind folks in case we just forgot, we were on the record on that piece regarding class size and our concern with that. But I don't have any other further questions. I really do appreciate the presentation this evening. Thank you.
I would make a motion.
Yeah.
I don't have any questions because I understand fully and in full support of this. There is nothing I think that would be a bigger game changer in public schools in New York than smaller class sizes. And all the efforts you have done and the people you work with are amazing. And I wish I followed it more closely, but it's pretty good. I know a lot of other things get a lot of publicity, but this is very, very important with disciplinary problems, with kids who speak English as a second language, with teachers unions, with a lot of things. And I would, sorry, it's a big wrap up, big thing for my motion, but I think we should write another letter just for what she was asking specifically and just to support what they're doing, especially balancing state law and now how they have to, the city has to kind of comply.
Thank you. Anyone want a second?
I second that.
Great, thank you.
Okay.
You take the vote.
Okay, so all those in favor of writing a letter in support, process amendment? Wonderful. Thank you so much, Naomi. I will, can you just send us that presentation?
Sure, of course. Happy to do that. Thank you so much, guys.
Yes, wonderful.
Thank you.
Every time.
Okay, bye-bye.
I can have one next, I think WPE is like this.
Yes.
Month. I'm trying to think of what we had, I didn't have any big letters, but if you need it, I mean, you probably.
No worries. Okay.
Leonie, I'm gonna put you into attendees if that's okay with you. If you wanna stay around, you're more than welcome, but that I'll take you off the panel. Is that all right?
Of course. Thank you so much.
Okay. Oh, okay. I didn't do that. Not do that.
Very good shit.
Okay.
Okay, so now we are down to the last item on the agenda. And we are discussing CEC District 2's resolution 248, calling for a review and a redrafting of the New York City Public Schools guideline on gender identity participation in PSAL sports. I think everyone here is familiar with the CEC. It's basically an advisory board, educational advisory board for pre-K to 8th grade. High schools have their own separate board. They do mainly, zoning matters, and as I say, other issues related to schools. So one of our board members, Carrie Keenan, would like to say a few words on this subject before we go into discussion about it. So, Carrie, it's all yours.
Hi, thanks for letting me say a few words. I tried to keep it short, but this is a very emotional topic for me. So if you give me, just allow me a few minutes, that'd be amazing. I'm Carrie Keenan. I think everybody knows me. I'm an MCB4 member, a 30-year resident of Chelsea, and a District 2 parent with 2 kids who have attended PS 11, 75 Morton, PPAS, and Beacon High School. Tonight, though, with her permission, I'm here as a mom of a transgender daughter and former D2 student to speak out against the blatantly transphobic and wholly illegal District 2 CEC Resolution 248. I've spent the last 18 years fighting for my daughter's right to simply exist in the world as her authentic self. When I learned about D2 CEC Resolution 248, I was angry at myself for not being able to remember who I voted for in the last CEC election. I feel ashamed that I took my eye off the ball because as the mom of a trans kid and an activist for the rights of trans youth, I'm so well aware of what's happening on school boards across the country, from Idaho to Ohio to Florida to now right here in our own community. And then I became even more angry as I watched the entire nearly 4-hour CEC meeting on YouTube, where a majority of D2 council members, 8 in favor and 3 against, passed an inherently transphobic resolution in their first attempt to change the gender guidelines adopted by the New York City DOE in 2019. The resolution is hateful. And here are just some of the most offensive parts. The 4 co-sponsors of the resolution state that allowing students to play on sports teams according to their affirmed gender undermines the progress made by all females throughout the history of sports. There is no evidence to support this, and it's harmful to trans youth. In paragraph 4, the resolution asserts that the gender guidelines had an immediate and far-reaching impact on classroom instruction, not sports. Their source for this claim is a New York Post opinion piece penned by Maud Marin, herself a co-sponsor of the Resolution 248 and a Moms for Liberty advocate, written 4 years after the gender guidelines were passed. If she were really worried, she might have at least cited herself earlier. In paragraph 6, the resolution states that no student, teacher, or member of the school community should be discriminated against on the basis of sex, sexual orientation, perceived or expressed gender identity, or any other characteristics. And then the CEC proceeds to pass a resolution that commits to exactly that kind of discrimination. Paragraph 7 asserts that the gender guidelines as currently drafted present challenges to youth athletes and coaches that raise concern. However, there is no evidence of this. As was stated during the CEC meeting itself, there is not a single complaint on file with PSAL regarding this issue. This is blatantly false. This council represents families with children in elementary and middle school, 5-year-olds to maybe 13-year-olds. Yet in paragraph 12, we hear about the danger trans students pose to NCAA athletes and athletic scholarships, not 5-year-old problems. The most disturbing to me are the many paragraphs asserting that transgender girls are not girls, that my daughter is not a girl, and she is therefore not entitled to the academic success, mental and physical health, or socio-emotional well-being that are proven to come from playing sports. This is blatant discrimination against a particular class of individuals who happen to be, as we all know, some of the most vulnerable in our society. And it's illegal under the New York City human rights laws and the New York State Gender Expression Non-Discrimination Act, or GENDA. Resolution 248 manufactures a problem that does not exist. It is not about creating equity or safety, or it's not even about the kids. It's a politically motivated, well-financed, and very dangerous effort to embed bigotry into our community. It's also a platform for Moms for Liberty to be able to say, look what we accomplished in New York City of all places, which is what they said on Twitter the night Resolution 248 passed. They thanked their good friends, Maud Marin and Charles Love. At the very least, our community board should denounce this resolution, but I hope we do more. I ask that we formally reassert our support for the 2019 New York City Department of Ed gender guidelines. I ask that we name this for what it is: anti-trans fear-mongering carried out by a group of politically motivated bigots. I ask that we call out the dangerous affiliation some of our school board members have with groups that have been deemed extremist by the Southern Poverty Law Center. And I ask that we demand Chancellor Banks remove the resolution sponsors, Leonard Silverman, Maud Marin, Allison Bowen, and Savina Serenise from D2 CEC, who pose an immediate danger to the safety and welfare of students, trans or otherwise, which is a direct violation of the CEC's code of conduct. This effort to attack our trans youth must end here. Just to end on a personal note, if you think you don't know a mom like me, you do. If you think you don't know someone who's trans, you do. My experience as the mother of a trans kid growing up in Chelsea has been 90% amazing and supportive, and I will tell you all those stories at another time, and 10% Leonard Silverman, Maud Marin, Allison Bowen, and Sabina Serenise. And that 10% has been hard. It's hard to see how ugly people can be, especially when you're just a little kid. But despite people like them, my girl is thriving because she's loved and because she's awesome and because she lives in a city that respects and protects her dignity, her rights, and her humanity. And I know that makes us the lucky ones. Thanks for indulging me because that was quite long and I'm sorry.
No apologies. Thank you so much for that, Carrie. Okay. So I just want to go over, well, I guess I just wanted to reiterate one of the, the important aspect of this is that the DOE currently is following the New York State human rights law. So it is in law, that's what they're following. PSAL, their mission is basically to educate all students on sports and give everyone a safe place to learn and play. That's just the goal. So I'm gonna open this up to discussion. Has anything they want to add to that or say?
I mean, I'd love to say that, Carrie, I think that was a powerful, really great summary of the facts and statement. And I really appreciate you sharing also about your experience as a mom and the experiences of your daughter. I think it's pretty clear that this is nothing more than a mean-spirited, attention-grabbing political stunt. And I think it's great that the facts are that this has zero legal or educational impact, right? And I think it's wonderful that Chancellor Banks said beforehand and since this has zero impact on what the DOE is going to do or how it's going to treat all students. And as you said, that this is just this cruel attempt to manufacture a problem that doesn't exist. I will say, I don't know, as a retired lawyer, I don't know what the process is or any of the legalities about asking the chancellor to remove CEC members. I don't know how that works. And I'm sure that there are people looking into it. I worry a little bit about giving any more airtime to this group who is desperate for attention. And I guess my thought on this topic is to write a letter to the chancellor thanking him for making clear from the get-go the importance of protecting and respecting the dignity and humanity of all youth, including trans youth, and making it very clear that this resolution has no impact on the way students will be treated. And I guess I just don't know. I feel like it would require it before we could write or do anything asking for the removal of CEC members. I think we would have to look a lot more into that piece of it. I guess would be my thoughts.
Other thoughts?
What I would add is I'm very supportive of at least doing the affirming of the New York Human Rights Act and thank the chancellor for his position. But I think it's a fine line of not adding fuel to the fire, but also not saying like, let's ignore and hope this goes away, especially given all of the momentum that these kinds of resolutions and laws are having across the country. And now, you know, even if this politically or legally doesn't have power, it politically has power. And so I, you know, it certainly more organizes some power. And so I think it's important that we have something that comes out of this for sure. I also don't know any of the rules yet, calling for removal from.
Thanks. I just want to know, Eric Botcher is joining, so.
Oh, okay, do you want to, Charlie, are you okay with that?
Yeah.
Hello, Eric, welcome.
Eric, you have to unmute.
Yeah, you're on mute.
You know, 50 years from now, we'll be on virtual, it'll be like the metaverse Zoom, and people will still be saying, you're on mute. I saw this on the agenda, and I just wanted to pop on and say thank you to the committee for taking this up. And I'm not going to talk about why the resolution was bad and why it was trying to address an issue that really hasn't been a problem. But I do want to talk about why I think it is important that we speak out about these. And although the temptation might be to not give it any oxygen, and I totally get that, I think that the people who put this forward and the people who voted for this were hoping that it would, that there would not be a blowback to it. They were hoping that they could vote for this and that they wouldn't suffer any consequences, that they as individuals would get to coast by. And I think as we've seen what's happening around the country, it keeps encroaching more and more into our own neck of the woods, which is shocking. And we have to make sure it stays shocking and that it doesn't become the norm. And I think a big part of that is asserting what our values are, and that's they're the values that align with the law and sound education. So that's what I just wanted to come by, but primarily really just to say thank you for taking this up. I think it's very important. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you.
I just realized my camera was off this whole time. I need to learn how to use Zoom. It's been 4 years and I'm still figuring out Zoom. Thanks, everyone.
Good to see you. Thank you, Eric. Thanks, appreciate it.
I that's something I wanted to say, which is, I'm just curious if we can look at the root problem of how we got to this situation, which is that these elections are very cryptic and no one votes in them. I mean, I voted in every local election. I just voted for president last week, and there were 14 volunteers in the room, and I was the only person voting. And I voted in this election, but it was inscrutable to know who to vote for. There was no one from my local elementary school who was voting, and there was no real communication. There's communication from the school saying, these elections are up, go vote. And you could go to a website, and there were many people running. And I think just the average person does not have the time to read paragraphs about 100 different people. Maybe I'm misremembering it, but I remember it being like a very long list of people running.
It was a very contested election. I mean, it was a very contested election.
Yeah.
Which is not usual, right? Josephine for seats. I mean, it was.
highly.
And that did reach my radar of like, oh, there's this Moms for Liberty thing happening and you gotta vote in this one. But even me trying to do the right thing as someone who does not support Moms for Liberty, I found it to be difficult to know exactly. There was no, I mean, we don't, that's a problem with local news. I don't know. There's a lot of problems here, but I just wonder if there's structurally, maybe that's not a letter for today, but if our committee can investigate, what can we do to make it more transparent? Like what the platforms are of people that we're voting for.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's something we can certainly think about in terms of when that sort of election cycle comes up and just informing ourselves as a committee, and then sort of how does that translate into the broader community? So people, so I remember getting that big list outside the school one day that I was handed, and it was like, just names after names, and it was, you just sort of, you know, what the PTA has sort of recommended and different parents, and yeah, it's a lot, I think, so I think it's worthy of a sort of a follow-up conversation about, you know, how do we educate?
Because one would think if there was like, if you had to put Moms for Liberty next to your ballot line, that, you know, in District 2 in Manhattan, that it would be a 90+%
Right,
against, you know, this type of issue.
yeah,
It's gonna mean something.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, years ago, when I was on the CEC, when I ran for the CEC, completely different ballgame. I mean, basically, I was sending letters to PTAs. It was a very small scale. But now it's become extremely.
They have
organized.
websites, people have people.
Yeah,
have their
websites,
own-
they raise
Become-
money to do this, so
Yeah.
it's become very hard for a parent like yourself to just run and win. Because it's become a very organized group,
Yeah,
and this is what they want to do, is take over school boards, take over CECs, district by district. And then start pushing this very conservative agenda, and that's exactly what's happening. So I think you raise a very important point. I think it's something that we have to think about. I do agree that something in the letter should be about what's happening with the CECs. I'm not sure about the language yet. I don't want to name names though, because I just feel as though they've already gotten enough attention. It's not about that, but I guess the issue with the CEC is they're really here to ensure that all kids are educated, well supported in a safe environment. And that's not what's happening when you're getting these kinds of things. So something should be said about that. I don't really know how, I just have to think about that for a little bit, but I don't want to start, giving more fuel to these certain organizations, because everybody knows who they are anyway. If you're following it, you're reading about it, they know who they are. I think the point is, because it could be Moms for Liberty this week, it could be another group the next week, another group. The point is that this is definitely a movement. It's happening, we see it happening, and we should say something about it.
I don't know if it was a motion by Katie, but I would second her, what you said, everything you said, and I would even add, we should throw questions back at them in our letter. I think we can even say, if they're, like Carrie said, this was not an issue, there've been no complaints.
Right.
Right, this is not an issue. I think we can very systematically in our letter say, if this is not it, why is this topic, like, I don't know if you want to get into it that way, if we want to put their feet to the fire, or we want to step back and, like you said, not give them any more oxygen. I don't know how you want to approach it, but I think if we're the community board that says, kind of questioning them, like, why are you doing this? And what is the problem? I don't know, or we don't want to do that and just say, no, I don't know what this.
Well, no, that is a good point, and we could say that, in conclusion, like, we feel that since no issues were ever raised.
Right.
For the DOE.
Why is the topic on the agenda?
Equals, right, this is what it.
Yeah,
Right,
it's
why-
funny, because even in Leonie's presentation earlier, she cited what the top issues have been in the parent surveys for like the last 10 years,
Right.
right? And she says like 9 out of 10 years, it's been class size. And once class size was the number 2 issue, and I forget what the number 1 issue was. Obviously, it's never been,
yeah, I was thinking.
Well, like our budget, we have a survey, we
Right.
don't go what the 50th issue is.
Exactly. Now, at the same time, I don't think it's for us as a community, as a civic, group, to tell another civic group what they can be voting on or not voting. But
I think we can ask a question.
right, but I do think we should say, it's clear if you look at the parent surveys that come out every year, what the, main topics of concern are to all the families in the district. And we would hope in the future that the CEC would be focusing on the issues raised by parents and not by these, made up issues with no facts.
And may I mention one, if we're gonna do a letter, one more topic, that I think we do say that, all is not equal, but we want it to be. Trans students need a little more, like,
Mhm.
they need to be.
There are more
protected a
vulnerable.
little more. Exactly, and Carrie said that, and they just need a little more attention, and it's not just, can they do something, or are they allowed to do something, but are they welcome to do something? Are we providing a safe enough environment where you know, without, obviously, without injuring anyone else, but are we providing a safe environment for them to excel and to feel comfortable in this case, it's participating in sports, but in anything. And I think we can say that. We can say, if you can't are we gonna send this, if we send a letter to the CEs, do you?
Well, they'll be copied on it for sure,
Yeah,
but.
so I think we can say
I
that.
think we should rush it to the chancellor.
Yeah.
Right.
Because then we can say, if people can't recognize that this vulnerable group, I mean, we write letters about vulnerable groups
Right.
all the time. And we, you know, say this needs a little more attention, violent, you know, this needs a little, I don't see why there can't be a line or two.
Of course, yes,
Is that
absolutely.
okay?
I mean, this is a highly vulnerable, because 1% of the population. Actually, I tried to get numbers, and there are no numbers basically from, 3-year-olds to 13-year-olds. I mean, that's not a surprise. So that's another reason why that this is just so manufactured and.
Yeah, I mean, I think we can tilt, that's what I'm saying, we can tilt it a little, we can put our
Yes,
thumb on the
right,
scale a little
right,
bit.
exactly. I just don't want
So-
to give those certain names
Yeah,
more attention, that they don't deserve any attention as far as I'm concerned. So, but the point is to like.
I think
watch
Carrie
this.
has her hand
Yes,
up.
yes,
Okay.
Jesse actually had a question.
Well, I'll defer to Kara, just
Okay.
for transparency's sake, I wanted to touch on something, but let's go through all the conversation.
Carrie, you had something in
Yeah.
there? Jesse has something?
Yeah, I mean, I would just urge you, to thank you for taking this up, and I'm really glad you're going to write a letter about it, and please do add your support, our support for the gender guidelines as they exist today. I just would urge you to sort of reframe lending more, putting the spotlight now more on trans kids and asking for special treatment for them, which is not what the intention is, right? The intention is just that all kids get the same, level of play and sport and social and emotional well-being at full stop, all kids. And definitely name these people, because if we don't name Moms for Liberty and Place New York, then it's not that we're giving them more attention. We're giving them the attention that they deserve in a negative way, and helping to educate the rest of our community so that the next time when the CEC election, flyer comes out with 400 names on it, when you see that these people have been endorsed by Place New York and Moms for Liberty, that the rest of us will know we don't vote for those people. So
I completely agree with you, Carrie. What I meant was, I'm fine with putting Place NYC and New York Moms for Liberty. I absolutely believe that those should be in the letter, but the individuals, I don't know, what did everyone think?
I don't think Place NYC should be in the letter, or Place NYC, Gail Brewer asked for their endorsement. I mean, Julie, we're not talking, I think this is a CEC thing. I mean, I don't know if we can do external organizations that some members might be part of, some might not be part of, some who voted against might be part of. I mean, I think Julie Menon is endorsed. I don't know, I know there are some council members that we have supported that are also endorsed.
I think there might be a way.
I don't know about Moms of Liberty. I'm not really familiar with how they seep into this. Other than.
I'm just thinking, and again, I think we just have to give some thought to this, but there may be a way, right? Because I think you're absolutely right, Leslie. We have to be super careful about naming things as sort of hate groups or whatever, when there may be other pieces of things they do that, I don't know, they do good, who knows? But I'm thinking that maybe we can add a section to this letter to the chancellor saying that we would encourage the chancellor, we're thanking him for being firm about supporting these students and not paying any attention to this crazy resolution, which is mean-spirited and attention-grabbing political stunt. And that we would ask that if there is an ability of the DOE to review the affiliations, or if any hate speech that has been conducted by any members of the CEC in connection with this, we would just encourage the chancellor to review it, right? And to take any appropriate steps. So we're not calling out any particular person, we're not calling out any particular group, we're just saying you should keep an eye on whether or not there has been
It's a good point. I mean, but they're saying all kinds of crazy stuff on social media, and they know. It's not like we don't know, but we put it in the letter, but the chancellor knows. I mean, the mayor knows. So
Right.
this has gone through,
Right.
this has been circulating for a while, so it's not like
Right.
they don't know. They're
Right.
screenshotting everything, and they're just basically, they're CEC members, and they're saying whatever they want to say at this point. If they
Yeah.
just don't even, there's no limit at this point.
Oh,
So, yeah.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Unless it's gonna, what Katie is, we just talked about this, right? I mean, Jessica, chair, talks about this at every full board, there's a code of conduct, there's generally a code of conduct.
Right,
More
yes.
bylaws to say what you all should be doing and appropriate, and then what you said earlier clicked with me as well. I mean, I don't know if there's, I mean, I don't know if there's bylaws for these organizations, and then I'm assuming that there are, there would be language saying what they're supposed to do and how they do it. And so I would say if there's a chance of using their own language against them, I think that's the way of saying, putting what you're saying, which is what their job is to protect children, and what they're not doing is following their own code of conduct, and it should be investigated. I mean, I don't know, like, if if the oversight is done by the mayor's office, and fine, or DOE, but I just think that might be an appropriate way to do it. Since I have it, I just, Carrie, this is gonna sound very silly, but I just wanna be transparent about this, because we typically do not have board members presenting in front of their own board. And so I just wanna be clear that there's no financial conflict of interest in this issue at all for you.
No, I'm just here as a mom.
Thank you.
I do want to say what Jesse just said in the notes that I gave. I can send them to you. It is those are the literal words from the code of conduct. So I can they are there, and they are breaking the code by harming trans youth. They are breaking the code, because harming any youth is breaking the code. So I also just want to point out, and again, to Josephine's point, and then I'll just stop talking, but I did go down this really horrible rabbit hole, and I did end up watching the Moms for Liberty panel when they were here. And I know there was a protest, and it was a big thing, and I think it was in January. And Maud Marin and Charles Love were both on that panel. So those are two of the CEC members. And Maud Marin said in that meeting, on that panel, don't watch it because it's horrible, that she was speaking about a previous CEC meeting. So it must have been like, I don't know, November or maybe October of 2023, where a parent got up to speak publicly and identified herself as a queer woman. But Maud Marin said to the crowd, but we all know that really she's just a straight woman who can't get a boyfriend, So like, when we talk about, are they being, is this something that they actually say out loud in front of people? Yes, it is, constantly. And these are the people who are representing the parents in our district of the children who are ages 5 to 13 or 12, K through 8. So it needs to be stopped. And I think it needs to be strongly worded. And I think that we cannot, be gentle with these people. They are not gentle. They are not gentle people. So thank you. That's all I have to say. I'll send the notes through to you, Josephine.
Thank you, Carrie.
So do we have a motion to write a strongly worded letter to the chancellor, thanking the chancellor for the position, affirming the human rights law, but denouncing this resolution in the strongest terms possible, outlining sort of the comments that we've mentioned, vulnerable groups? We can take a look at the bylaws, reflect some of the language back at them. But this is not a priority. We can maybe even take a look and get some of that information.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And also just to denounce, I don't know if this is part of what you just said, but specifically denouncing CEC members speaking in public about saying these horrible comments,
Yeah.
right? Because you are still
using
CEC members, and
Hateful
I think
language.
some of them have actually, on flyers said, yes, we're part of the CEC, on this panel, which creates a really big problem.
Yeah.
So they're not necessarily making those comments at CEC meetings, but they're saying them in other places and
Right.
all over the place.
Right. And of course, we all have to be mindful, obviously, of First Amendment rights and everything, but there
Right.
is a way of saying, absolutely, we just need to investigate whether or not comments, wherever they're made, are in violation of the code of conduct that people have committed to.
Yeah, I would bring it back to the code of conduct.
Yeah,
Because that's,
right.
he's gonna care.
And then I think just one more thing that Carrie had asked for that I think we did agree to is just adding support for the existing gender affirming legislation.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Correct.
Katie, do you wanna volunteer to give a
Right,
pass at a first?
Sure.
you're the lawyer, you're the lawyer.
Yes, but why don't I first and second the motion?
Yes.
Who made the motion?
Oh, no, she made the, no, Katie made the motion, I seconded
Oh,
your.
that's a good point. Okay, I think you restated the motion. Okay, I made the motion.
I seconded.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor?
All right.
All right.
Thank you so much, everyone. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Carrie.
Thanks, Carrie.
Thank you, everyone.
Any, oh, sorry, no, it's not, we're gonna clear a guest.
Oh, hi, yes, my name's Nico Dodd, I'm a graduate student at Pratt Institute, at the 14th Street campus, doing coursework related, to, community engagement, and so I've attended a few committee meetings and, community boards 2 and 4, this is my first time visiting a community board 4, committee meeting, so just grateful to be here and, yeah, just, a question, what is TPC?
Transportation Planning Committee.
Okay, good.
You're listening.
Yeah.
Wow, got that. I would have jammed that, I know.
I just want, is there any new old business before we adjourn? Okay, good.
It's a good committee.
First, I guess I know that there are different, it seems like there are different roles governance wise that different committees play or serve in different districts or different CDs, like districts. Are there any special roles that this committee serves?
How about this? I'm happy to sit after this meeting adjourns, I'm happy to sit down and answer everything.
You do that. You do that. Yeah, you do that. Mostly, and motion for guidance.
Thank you, Jesse.
You all know me, I'm
Volunteers go home.
Thank you.
Thank you all so much.
Motion to adjourn.